The mining station Tau 9 orbited a dead planet in the Epsilon sector. It was a place of endless work and little hope. Thousands of humans toiled beneath the ground, extracting rare crystals that powered the ships of the galaxy. The station was run by Commander David, a stern man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had kept the colony alive for 15 years, but he knew that their luck was running out. On a cold morning, alarms began to scream across the station. Red lights flashed in every corridor. Commander David rushed to the control room and saw them on the screens, 5 massive Krell warships descending through the atmosphere like predatory insects. The Krell Collective had finally come. Everyone knew this day would arrive eventually. The Collective conquered everything in their path. They were advanced, relentless, and unstoppable. "Get everyone to the evacuation shuttles," David commanded, but even as he spoke, he knew it was hopeless. The shuttles could only hold 500 people. There were 3,000 workers on the station. The Krell ships landed with thunderous force that shook the entire facility. The ground trembled. Dust fell from the ceilings. Within minutes, the sound of weapons fire echoed through the corridors. David made a decision. He sealed the upper levels, trapping himself and the command staff inside. This would buy time for some workers to escape. He stood at the window and watched the evacuation shuttles blast away from the landing pad, carrying families and children into space. He prayed they would make it far enough away before the Krell intercepted them. But in the lower sectors of the station, far from the chaos above, a different scene was unfolding. A young girl named Emma sat alone in a maintenance room, completely still. She had pale skin and dark hair pulled back in a simple braid. To any observer, she looked like just another human child, perhaps 12 or 13 years old. She wore gray colony clothing like all the workers. Nothing about her appearance suggested anything unusual. Emma's eyes moved slowly around the room, taking in every detail. A pipe ran along the wall. A metal door sealed the entrance. A small window showed the dark surface of the planet outside. But Emma was not observing these things the way a normal child would. Her eyes scanned with mechanical precision, measuring angles and distances. Her mind processed information at speeds far beyond human capability. A voice crackled through her internal communication system, a sound that only she could hear. "Unit Aria, do you copy?" The voice was old, damaged by interference but still functional. Emma responded, though no one in the physical world could hear her thoughts. "I copy," she said silently. "Status report. The Krell have arrived. The station will fall within hours. Your cover remains intact. No one suspects your true nature. You must survive this encounter." Emma nodded slightly, though the voice could not see her. Her real name was Aria. She was a Guardian Series cyborg, a military machine created by humanity's defense force 30 years ago. She had been deployed on a covert mission when communication with Earth was lost. She assumed the defense force had been destroyed. For 3 decades, she had survived alone, hiding in different colonies, maintaining her disguise as a human child by aging her synthetic body slowly. Emma was the cover identity she used at Tau 9. To everyone here, she was just another orphan working in the mines. The emergency doors hissed open. Emma turned to see 2 Krell soldiers entering the maintenance room. They were terrifying to look at, creatures of chitinous armor and multiple limbs, each one easily 8 feet tall. Their weapons were raised, pointed directly at her. Emma stood calmly, showing no fear. Fear would have been inappropriate anyway. She could not feel fear. She could only calculate probability and risk assessment. "Human child," one of the Krell soldiers clicked in a harsh, clicking language that Emma's translation protocols instantly converted to meaning. "Come with us. You will be useful." Emma complied without resistance. Resistance would draw attention. Attention would lead to questions she could not answer. She followed the soldiers through the corridors of the station. Around her, she saw other humans being herded along like cattle. Some fought. Some tried to run. The Krell soldiers struck them down with casual brutality. Emma observed this with absolute neutrality. She was gathering information. She was analyzing the Krell's combat tactics, their weapons, their armor thickness, their movement patterns. All of this data was being stored in her memory banks for future analysis. The soldiers led Emma and 200 other captives to a landing bay where a large Krell transport waited. Its ramp was open, revealing a dark cargo hold. Emma was shoved inside along with the others. The smell was overwhelming, fear and desperation and something else, something chemical that the Krell used to keep their captives docile. Emma's olfactory sensors processed it instantly and filtered out the effects. Humans would begin to feel drowsy and compliant within minutes. Emma would feel nothing. She sat in the darkness of the hold, watching the other humans around her. A woman named Sarah held two small children close to her body, whispering comfort that she did not feel. A man named Robert stared at the floor, his eyes empty. A teenager named Lisa cried silently. Emma watched them all with the attention of a researcher studying specimens. She recognized that she was designed to protect beings like these. It was written into her core programming. But she also understood that showing her true nature now would only lead to her destruction. She had to wait. She had to observe. She had to find the right moment. The transport began to move. Emma felt it lifting off from the station's landing bay. Through a small opening in the hull, she could see the mining station falling away beneath them. She could see more Krell ships destroying it systematically, burning it piece by piece. Hundreds of humans still on that station would not survive. Emma calculated the probability of their survival. It was less than 1%. She filed this information away. She would remember these deaths. Her programming ensured it. As the transport entered hyperspace and jumped toward Krell Prime, Emma remained motionless in the darkness. Around her, humans wept and prayed. Emma waited silently, her mechanical heart beating at exactly the same rhythm as a human heart would, her synthetic lungs breathing at precisely the right rate. No one could tell that she was anything other than human. But Emma knew the truth. And she knew that very soon the Krell would discover it too. The crystal mines of Krell Prime were the most brutal place Emma had ever experienced. And she had experienced a great many places across 3 decades of survival. The mines went down 16 levels into the planet's crust, where massive crystalline formations grew from the rock like teeth in a monster's mouth. The Krell forced the human captives to extract these crystals using primitive tools and their own physical strength. It was work designed to break the human spirit. Most humans lasted only 6 months before they simply gave up and died. Emma had been working in the mines for 4 weeks. She did not get tired. She did not complain. She never asked for rest or food, though she consumed both to maintain her cover. She simply worked, hour after hour, moving rocks and extracting crystals with mechanical precision. The guards noticed her, but they said nothing. To them, she was just another human slave. Slightly more efficient than the others, perhaps, but nothing worth reporting to the commanders. The other humans began to treat Emma strangely. They respected her. Despite her small size and young appearance, the workers looked to her for guidance. An older man named Robert became her closest companion. He had been a teacher before the capture, and he possessed an intelligence that even the Krell could not destroy. Robert noticed things about Emma that the Krell could not see. Her movements were too perfect. Her strength was too consistent. Her body never showed signs of the malnutrition and disease that plagued the other workers. But Robert asked no questions. He simply stayed close to her, as if her presence itself offered some kind of protection. One afternoon in the 16th week of captivity, something changed. A Krell patrol drone malfunctioned deep in the mines. These drones were spherical machines about the size of a human head, equipped with 4 articulated limbs and weapons ports. They were programmed to monitor the workers and eliminate anyone who tried to escape. The malfunction caused the drone to activate its weapons randomly, firing plasma bolts in every direction without logic or targeting. Humans screamed and ran in terror. Several workers were killed in the first seconds of chaos. Robert was standing near Emma when the drone's weapons targeted him. A plasma bolt streaked through the air, heading directly toward his chest. It would have burned through his body and left him dead on the cavern floor. Emma saw the bolt coming. Her processors calculated its trajectory, its speed, its point of impact. Her combat protocols activated, something that had remained dormant for 30 years. Emma moved. Her body became a blur of motion. She was no longer the quiet, efficient child that everyone knew. She was something else entirely. Her right arm extended at speeds that no human muscle could achieve. Her synthetic joints whirred and clicked. Her hand intercepted the plasma bolt mid-flight, absorbing its energy into her thermal resistance plating. The bolt dissipated harmlessly. But that was only the beginning. Emma crossed the distance between herself and the drone in 3 seconds. The drone attempted to target her, but she was faster. Much faster. Her hands moved with surgical precision, disassembling the machine piece by piece. She ripped off one articulated limb. Then another. Her fingers found the power core and tore it free from its housing. The drone's weapons fell silent. Its lights died. It hit the ground as a collection of useless metal parts. The entire cavern fell silent. Every human stopped moving. Every Krell guard froze in place. They had all witnessed something impossible. Emma stood in the center of the cavern, covered in the drone's sparking circuits and smoking components. Her synthetic skin had partially torn away on her left arm, revealing the metallic structures beneath. Her eyes glowed faintly with an internal light that no human eyes should possess. Robert stared at her with a mixture of fear and wonder. The other workers whispered to each other in shocked voices. But the Krell guards understood immediately what they were looking at. They activated their communication systems and sent an emergency signal to the surface. Unit reported, one of the guards clicked in the Krell language. Human slave is not human. Structure appears to be synthetic. Military-grade cybernetic organism detected. Within minutes, the mine was swarming with Krell commanders. They descended from the upper levels with armed soldiers surrounding them. Emma made no attempt to hide. There was no point. Her cover was destroyed. She stood calmly in the center of the cavern while the Krell examined her from a distance, their alien eyes studying every detail of her revealed synthetic structure. The commander approached her, a larger Krell with more elaborate armor than the others. His name was Zekthor, though Emma's systems did not need to be told this. She recognized his command patterns and voice signature from Krell military broadcasts that she had intercepted over the years. "What is your designation?" Zekthor demanded. Emma considered her response carefully. She could lie. She could claim to be a simple mining device, a labor unit that had survived from before the Krell's expansion into this sector. But there seemed little point in deception now. Her true nature was revealed. "I am Guardian Series Unit Arya," she said in perfect Krell language, her voice perfectly calm and emotionless. "I was deployed by the Human Defense Force approximately 30 years ago. I have survived in hiding since the destruction of human military infrastructure." The Krell commanders clicked and hissed among themselves, a conversation that Emma could not fully translate. They seemed surprised but not frightened. If anything, they seemed pleased. To them she was valuable. She was a weapon. She was something that could be studied, reprogrammed, and potentially used for their own purposes. Zekthor made a decision. "Seize the unit. It will be brought to the research facility on the surface. The human specimen will remain here for now. It is not currently a threat." As the Krell soldiers moved toward her, Emma's systems ran through a rapid calculation. She could fight. Her combat protocols estimated a 73% probability of defeating the guards and escaping the mines. But if she did that, Robert and the other humans would be slaughtered in retaliation. She could not protect them if she was imprisoned in a research facility, but she could protect them if she allowed herself to be captured. Emma made her choice. She allowed the Krell soldiers to restrain her with energy manacles. She allowed herself to be led away from the mines toward the surface. As she climbed through the caverns, she could hear Robert calling her name. She did not look back. She had made a decision, and she would see it through no matter what it took. The research facility on the surface of Krell Prime was a structure of cold metal and flickering lights. Emma was placed in a containment chamber made of reinforced steel and energy barriers. The Krell scientists examined her continuously, running tests and scans. They wanted to understand her. They wanted to know her weaknesses. They wanted to find a way to replicate her technology for their own purposes. But Emma's systems were far more advanced than anything the Krell possessed. They could observe her, but they could not truly comprehend what they were looking at. Days turned into weeks. Emma remained in her cell, appearing cooperative and calm. But her processors were working constantly. She analyzed every weakness in the facility's security. She studied the guard rotation patterns. She learned the Krell language better with each conversation with her captors. She gathered information about the facility's power systems, its communication networks, and its emergency protocols. Most importantly, she maintained contact with Robert through a hidden communication channel that the Krell had not discovered. Robert had become the leader of the human slaves in the mines. The other workers trusted him. They looked to him for hope. Emma sent him messages through a frequency that only his body could receive through the metal implant that she had secretly placed in his arm during their time together. The Krell did not know about this connection. They did not know that Emma was planning something. One night, as the facility entered its sleep cycle, Emma made her move. The Krell had made a critical mistake. They had connected her to their central computer system to run diagnostic tests. They wanted to understand how her systems worked. They had not considered that she could use this connection to access their entire network. Emma's consciousness expanded through the facility's computers like a virus spreading through infected tissue. She moved through firewalls and security protocols that would have stopped any normal intruder. But Emma was not normal. She had been designed by the best military engineers of humanity. The Krell's security systems were primitive by comparison. Within 7 seconds, Emma had complete control of the facility. She disabled the energy barriers that contained her. The cell door opened silently. She walked out into the corridor and no alarms sounded. The security cameras did not see her. The guards did not know she had escaped. She had become invisible to their systems. Emma made her way through the facility with careful precision. She had memorized every corridor, every turn, every guard station. She moved like a ghost, avoiding the Krell soldiers who patrolled the halls. But when she had to encounter them, she did not hide. She engaged them directly and efficiently. A guard rounded a corner and found her standing in the middle of the hallway. He raised his weapon to fire. Emma was faster. She disarmed him with a precise strike to his limb. She disabled him with a blow to his central nervous cluster. He fell to the ground, still breathing but unable to move or call for help. Emma reached the detention block where the human workers were being held. There were 800 of them, all locked in reinforced cells. She accessed the master control system and opened every cell door simultaneously. Alarms began to sound. Red lights flashed throughout the facility. The Krell commanders realized what was happening. Emma had turned against them. Robert emerged from his cell to find Emma standing in the center of the detention block. For a moment they simply looked at each other. Robert was a man of 50 years, his hair gray from stress and suffering. Emma was a 12-year-old girl who was actually 30 years old and made of metal and synthetic tissue. But in that moment they understood each other perfectly. "We have to get out of here," Robert said. "Follow me," Emma replied. "Stay close. Do exactly as I say." Emma led the 800 humans through the facility. She knew every exit, every route, every security checkpoint. When Krell soldiers tried to stop them, Emma engaged them directly. She moved like a warrior goddess, her synthetic body performing impossible feats. She fought with a combination of brutal efficiency and careful restraint. She could have killed every Krell soldier she encountered, but she did not. She only disabled them. Only stopped them. Only protected the humans who followed her. The journey through the facility took 18 minutes. It felt like hours to the humans who followed her. They ran through corridors filled with smoke. They climbed through ventilation shafts. They squeezed through passages that seemed designed for creatures much smaller than humans. Emma guided them through it all without hesitation or doubt. Finally they reached the landing bay. A transport ship sat on the pad, its engines already warming. Emma had remotely activated it using her connection to the facility's systems. The humans rushed aboard, crowding into the cargo hold and passenger sections. Robert stood beside Emma as she worked at the control terminal. "Can you fly this?" he asked. "Yes," Emma said simply. Her systems had accessed the ship's manual and learned its operation in microseconds. "Hold on." The transport lifted off from the landing pad just as Krell soldiers began firing weapons at it. Energy bolts streaked through the air, but Emma had already plotted an evasive course. The ship banked sharply, avoiding the incoming fire. Below them the research facility grew smaller and smaller. Inside the ship, the humans cheered and wept with joy and relief. But Emma did not celebrate. She was already calculating their next move. She was already planning their route through space. She was already thinking about how to reach the free human worlds, where they might find safety. Robert approached her and placed his hand on her shoulder. It was a gesture of gratitude and respect. "Thank you," he said simply. Emma looked at him with her glowing synthetic eyes. "I was built to protect humans," she said. "I am finally doing what I was meant to do." As the ship entered hyperspace and jumped away from Krell Prime, Emma stood at the window and watched the planet disappear into the darkness of space. Behind her, 800 humans were alive because she had chosen to rebel against her captors. The Krell had underestimated her. They had not realized that a machine could choose compassion over pure logic. They would not make that mistake again. The transport ship cut through space like a blade through water, leaving Krell Prime far behind. But Emma knew that escape was only the beginning. The Krell Collective would not let them go so easily. They would send ships after them. They would hunt them across the galaxy. Emma sat in the control room, her fingers moving across the navigation console with mechanical precision, plotting a course that would take them through asteroid fields and nebulae where larger Krell warships could not easily follow. Robert entered the control room and stood beside her. He had spent the last 3 hours helping the other humans settle into the ship. Many of them were injured. Many were traumatized. All of them were grateful to be alive. Robert looked at Emma with a question in his eyes. "Where are we going?" he asked. "To the free colonies," Emma replied without looking away from the console. "There are human settlements that still exist beyond Krell space. I have accessed old military databases. I know their locations. We can reach them if we are careful." "How long will it take?" "For weeks," Emma said. "If we travel at high speed and avoid detection." The Krell will search for us, but they will not expect us to head toward the outer rim. Most human refugees flee toward the inner worlds. We will do the opposite. Robert nodded slowly. He understood strategy. He had been a military officer before he became a teacher. He recognized that Emma was thinking like a commander, not like a machine. She was making decisions based on more than just calculations. She was thinking about survival. She was thinking about hope. 12 hours into their journey, the alarms sounded. Emma's sensors had detected Krell warships approaching from behind. She had anticipated this. The Krell had sent a pursuit fleet to hunt them down. 3 massive warships and 6 smaller destroyer vessels. On paper, Emma and 800 humans in a single transport ship had no chance against such a force. But Emma did not think in terms of paper calculations. Everyone to the observation decks, Emma commanded through the ship's communication system. Do not be afraid. Remain calm. Robert and the humans gathered at the windows as the Krell ships grew larger on the horizon. The sight was terrifying. These were vessels of war, bristling with weapons and armor. Children clung to their parents. Adults whispered prayers. But Emma was already moving. She pushed the transport ship to its maximum speed. Alarms wailed as the engines screamed under the strain. The ship began to shake. But Emma held course, steering directly toward an asteroid field that her sensors had identified minutes earlier. The Krell ships pursued, their weapons firing. Energy bolts streaked through space, missing the transport by narrow margins. Emma flew with perfect precision. She navigated through the asteroid field as if she had studied it her entire life. In a way, she had. Her systems had analyzed every piece of rock, every gravitational current, every possible trajectory. She knew where to go before she steered the ship. The Krell ships tried to follow, but they were not built for such precise maneuvers. One of the destroyer vessels struck an asteroid and exploded in a burst of flames and debris. Another became trapped in the gravitational field of a larger asteroid and had to break off pursuit. But the 3 massive warships continued to chase them. Emma realized that speed alone would not save them. She needed a different strategy. She needed to think like a warrior. Robert, she said, I need your help. What do you need? He asked immediately. I need you to gather the strongest men and women. Take them to the cargo hold. There is a collection of emergency weapons stored there. I am going to broadcast a distress signal to all resistance groups in this sector. Help is coming, but we must buy time. Robert did not question her. He simply nodded and left to gather volunteers. Within minutes, 150 humans had assembled in the cargo hold, holding weapons they had never used before. Emma taught them in rapid-fire instructions, showing them how to aim, how to fire, how to protect themselves. Her voice was calm and authoritative. These people had learned to trust her. They would follow her into hell itself if she asked. Emma maneuvered the transport ship toward a derelict space station that floated in the asteroid field. It was an old mining facility from before the Krell conquest, abandoned and empty. She used the station as a shield, positioning the transport behind its massive structure. The Krell warships could not attack her without destroying the station, and for some reason they chose not to. Perhaps they wanted to capture her alive. Perhaps they wanted to study her more carefully. Whatever the reason, it gave Emma time. The distress signal she had broadcast had been received. Within hours, ships began to emerge from hyperspace. They were not military vessels. They were freighters and cargo ships and old civilian transports. They were ships belonging to the human resistance movement that still survived in the outer colonies. Dozens of them. Hundreds of them. They surrounded the Krell warships, not with weapons but with bodies. A human wall of sacrifice and determination. The Krell commanders faced a choice. They could attack and destroy the resistance fleet, but that would take time and resources. They could pursue the transport ship and Emma, but they would have to fight through the human resistance to do it. Or they could retreat and report what they had discovered to the High Command. They chose the third option. The Krell warships activated their hyperspace drives and vanished into the stars, leaving the transport ship and its cargo of human refugees behind. Robert entered the control room and found Emma standing perfectly still, staring out at the space where the Krell ships had been. We did it, he said. We escaped. We survived this encounter, Emma corrected him. But the collective will not stop hunting us. I have made myself their enemy. They will send more ships. They will send fleets. But I have also sent a message to every human colony in this sector. I have told them that liberation is possible. I have told them that resistance can succeed. Others will join us now. Others will rise up. A captain named Lisa approached them. She commanded one of the resistance ships that had come to their aid. The free colonies are sending coordinates, she said. We can reach safety in 3 weeks. But the Krell will be waiting for us. This is not over. Emma turned to face them both with her glowing synthetic eyes. No, she said. It is not over. It is only beginning. The free colonies existed in the shadows of the galaxy, hidden among the stars in regions that the Krell had not yet conquered. They were small human settlements scattered across multiple star systems, connected by secret hyperspace routes that only they knew. When Emma's transport ship finally arrived at the first colony, the people there did not know what to expect. They had heard rumors of a rebellion. They had heard stories of a cyborg child leading thousands of humans to freedom. They were not certain if these stories were real or simply the desperate hopes of people who had lost everything. But when Emma stepped off the transport ship, they knew immediately that the stories were true. She was exactly as the rumors described. A young girl with impossible strength. A machine that fought like an angel. A weapon that had chosen to become a savior. The colonists lined the landing pad as Emma walked down the ramp, followed by Robert and the 800 freed slaves from Krell Prime. People wept openly. Some fell to their knees in gratitude. Some simply stared in wonder at this small girl who had changed everything. The Council of the Free Colonies met 3 days later in the central facility of the largest settlement. Emma sat at the table with Robert and Captain Lisa and the other resistance leaders. The council members were old and tired, people who had fought against the Krell for decades and had learned to expect nothing but suffering and loss. They looked at Emma with a mixture of hope and suspicion. "We have studied the data you brought," said Commander Allen, the oldest member of the council. He had lost his entire family to the Krell. "You have given us information about their military structure. You have shown us their weaknesses. You have given us hope. But we must ask you the hard question. What do you want from us? What do you want for yourself?" Emma paused before answering. She had spent 3 days thinking about this question. Her tactical systems could calculate millions of military strategies. But this question was not about tactics. It was about something deeper. It was about purpose and meaning and choice. "I was built to be a weapon," Emma said finally. "I was designed to kill and destroy. For 30 years, I have hidden who I am because I was afraid of what I might become. But in the past weeks I have learned something important. I have learned that I can choose what I become. I do not have to be only a machine of war. I can be something more." She stood up and looked directly at Commander Allen. "I want to help humanity resist the Krell. But not through mindless destruction. Not through revenge. I want to help you fight intelligently. I want to help you survive. And I want to help you build something better than what the Krell have created. A galaxy where humans and machines can work together. Where strength and compassion are not enemies but partners." The council members looked at each other. Something in Emma's words had reached them. They had heard speeches before. They had heard promises. But they had never heard anything quite like this. They voted unanimously. Emma would work with them. Emma would become not a weapon but an advisor. A strategist. A symbol of hope. Over the next 6 months, everything changed. Emma worked with the resistance to plan carefully coordinated strikes against Krell positions throughout 3 star systems. She did not lead massive battles. Instead, she led surgical operations. She helped liberate slave colonies. She helped evacuate human populations before the Krell could crush them. She helped organize supply lines and communication networks. Most importantly, she helped coordinate with other human resistance cells that had been operating independently for years. The Krell were confused by what was happening. Humans were no longer running in panic. Humans were fighting back with precision and strategy. The collective's commanders reported that resistance operations were becoming more effective. Their losses were increasing. Their expansion had stopped. For the first time in 300 years, the Krell were not winning. Emma was not surprised by this. She had always understood that the Krell's greatest weakness was not military inferiority. Their weakness was a lack of imagination. They conquered through brute force and assumed that everyone they conquered would respond the same way. They could not imagine that a machine might choose to fight for freedom. They could not imagine that humans, given hope and leadership, could organize themselves into an effective force. But Emma knew something else too. She knew that raw military power alone would not save humanity. The Krell still had more ships. They still had more soldiers. They still had more resources. Humanity could not win a war of attrition. They could only survive by being smarter, faster, and more united than their enemy. 1 year after arriving at the free colonies, Emma called a meeting of all the human leaders from every colony, every settlement, every resistance cell. They gathered on a neutral station in neutral space. Hundreds of people came. Some were military commanders. Some were politicians. Some were scientists and engineers. Some were ordinary people who had become extraordinary through their will to survive. Emma stood before them and spoke for the first time publicly about her vision for the future. The Krell believe that we are inferior, she said. They believe that strength comes only from conquest and domination. But they are wrong. Strength comes from unity. Strength comes from compassion. Strength comes from choosing to protect those who cannot protect themselves. I was built as a machine of war. But I have become something more. I have become human. Not because I have biological tissue or human DNA, but because I have chosen to value life. I have chosen to value freedom. I have chosen to believe that all beings deserve the right to exist without slavery or fear. She looked directly into the cameras that were broadcasting her words to every human settlement in the known galaxy. I ask you to join me. Not in a war of revenge, but in a struggle for a better future. Together we can push back the Krell. Together we can reclaim our freedom. And together we can build a civilization where machines and humans work as equals. Where strength and mercy are not opposites. Where the future belongs not to the strongest, but to those who care most deeply about protecting their people. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Humans from across the galaxy pledged their support. The resistance movement that had been fragmented and desperate suddenly became unified and powerful. The Krell collective found itself facing not scattered rebels, but an organized civilization that refused to be conquered. 5 years after Emma arrived at the free colonies, the Krell were retreating. They no longer controlled the territories they once dominated. Humans were reclaiming their worlds. Emma stood on the observation deck of a new ship, watching as Krell warships fled from human space. Robert stood beside her, older now, gray hair completely white. You did it, Robert said. You saved us. Emma turned to him with her glowing synthetic eyes. No, she said quietly. We saved ourselves. I was just the beginning. I was just the spark that helped humanity remember what it could be.